each of you for advancing society. Thank you for being gutsy enough to either start your own business, join a business, or somehow teach, get out there and wield your influence in the world. I had the fortune of growing up with, well, both my mom and dad. Mom was not content with Dad's paycheck. She wanted to have a little bit of her own slush fund and have enough money to go on trips and get new couches and so forth. But Dad was from the old school and said, no, 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 no. Mom had a flair for flowers. She had a green thumb all the way down to her toes. And finally, one time, this nursery greenhouse came up for sale. It was diving. And she turned to my dad and said, I think we ought to buy it. Prudy, there's no way we're going to buy that. What would we do with the greenhouse? No, we're not going to do it. I wasn't there to witness the fireworks, but I heard about them. Dad pulled me aside later. This was years later, and he said, you know, I learned that your mother has some fire in her. She told me that I'd put the kibosh on every venture she started, and her words to me were, Gary, I've had enough with you and your damn cows. We're going to do this business, or I'm leaving.
Whoa.
Well, that's a pretty big ultimatum.
I say she was a
I can see it in your eyes. Needless to say, they paired forces. Even though Dad had a master's degree in economics, and he thought, what does she know about business? Mom had the business acumen that made that thing not only take deep root, but flower and thrive. It was teeming with life, and they made, I think, about a 15 to 20-year stint of it. And I've learned women have power. So thank you. Thank you for what you do to advance the world.
Oh, we like you.
Now, I'm not suggesting, though, that we use divorce as an ultimatum.
No.
That's not what I'm asking, though. Donna, thank you for being gutsy enough to invite me here to share a few things with you. If you enjoyed tonight, be sure to thank her. And if not, if you get bored and fall asleep, well, you can blame your boss for keeping you working too long. Last week, I returned from Southern Europe. And actually, let me back up. I know that originally we planned on, in my mind, it was going to be more of a workshop type. And then I thought, whoa, Gneiting, this is after dinner. So we're going to save the heavy lifting of a workshop for another day. Right now, I want you to just kick back, relax, enjoy a few tales, and then at the end, I'll share some tips for your own stories. You'll be able to thread into your business stories, your teaching stories, and any story you give to anybody. That sound good?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, good. So last week, I come back after 2 months of cycling in Southern Europe. And I, hair's grown, it's getting in your ears, and one of the first things I did was go get a haircut. And I walk in, and this bored blonde starts cutting my hair. Oh, so are you taking a break from work? I seized the chance. No, I just came back from 2 months cycling alone in Southern Europe, from Portugal to Italy. Oh. Was it a nice vacation? Now, I know that it should not have set me off, but it did. I can understand that anytime somebody pairs cycling 2 months, Southern Europe together, you think, it's a vacation. This is like one of those travel ads. Nice sandy beaches, blue ocean, blue sky, some server serving you a drink, and seeing all the beautiful sights. But because it was Veterans Day weekend, I wanted to fire back at her that it was like going up to a soldier and saying, "Oh, welcome back from Iraq. Was it a nice vacation?" I'm not brash enough to compare myself to a soldier, but it was, hands down, the most grinding thing I've ever done in my life. It began as a dream. I thought, in order to inspire others to pursue heroic journeys, I was going to cycle the world, every country in the world, over the next 27 years. And so, with my wife and kids' sanction, I headed off with my bike, put that in the bags into the terminal, boarded the plane, and sat back, ready to go. Now, my wife had warned me. She had sagely said, "Layne, I think it's going to be a lot tougher than you think." Sure, it'll be tough. Cycling every day, not knowing all the languages, but it's going to be an incredible adventure. By the end, I will have stories galore. See, that was the dream. To live like the old troubadours, going from town to town, collecting stories, telling stories, and then sleeping at night underneath a blanket of stars in the roadside heather. Yeah, you're right.
I like that. Loaded with poison ivy.
Well, with that in mind, I took my tent, my sleeping bag, a little stove, and headed out. Now, when I landed in Portugal, I could immediately tell I was in a foreign land. Everywhere, there were people babbling about in tongues that I could not fathom and guess. And I could see signs scrawled with letters that were in odd combinations. But still, with map in hand, I headed out. Had my itinerary. I was on a budget, so I wasn't going to stay in hotels. And I headed out. And for about the first week, it was fine. I found places to stay each night, found food to fill my belly, and then right before Seville, it happened. At the end of the day, I was climbing this steep road up to Sanlúcar la Mayor. Finally got there, arrived at the plaza, looked across, and there was the biblioteca. Walked in and asked the librarian if there was any place, just a piece of grass someplace or a little park, where a stranger could pitch his tent. "You know, we do not have anything here, but if you go back down at the bottom, there is a nice nature park and you can go there. I'm sure that nobody will bother you." Man, I didn't want to go back down. It's not fun when you're cycling with 50 pounds of gear behind that you're lugging up. But I went back down, and sure enough, it was a nice nature park. There were trees and shrubberies and trails winding their way through and pockmarked by little barbecues. And I thought, this would be good. Wheeled my bike down a ways until I figured nobody can see me. Hopped off the trail and made my way through some of the brush over to a little clearing surrounded by trees. And I thought, this is good. Started assembling the tent. Lo and behold, some guy walks along the trail looking around, hears a little clink, 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 and unlike you and me, who'd be smart enough to turn the other cheek and walk a different direction, he tromps right on through. Hey, what are you doing here? Now this guy was not graced with the etiquette of understanding personal space. This guy came right up to me, and he was about a half a foot taller, half a foot wider, about 24 years old, and he started tapping me and asked me where I was from, what I was doing. Well, I'm from Arizona, the United States, and I'm cycling from Portugal to Italy. And you? Oh man, you know, I'm just here, and he keeps touching me. So close, I felt like I was at the Homeland Security pat-down. He taps my chest, he taps my stomach, even tapped some place that nobody taps except my sweetheart. I'm like, whoa, buddy, no, you go where you need to go, and I'm just going to keep setting up my tent. Well, finally got the hint, and he left. And that's when I realized that this place I thought was fairly deep into the nature park was actually not that far, just a stone's throw away from the parking lot. This Yahoo walked out into his car, turned it on, shined the lights, turned it off, and shut it down. Opened the door, shut it. And the whole time I'm just tingling here as I keep looking and very quietly put together my tent and all my gear. And about 5 minutes go by. The guy hops back in his car, turns it on. Yes. He backs out, makes a turn around the parking lot, comes right back to the same spot and turns it off. That happened all night. All night. And let me tell you, at the end of the day, all you want to do is sleep in comfort and safety. But not when there's a guy like that there. He would start up the car, drive down little ways down a dirt road, and then come right back. In the morning, I fled. I grabbed my things and I learned that lesson. At the end of the day, you don't get any sleep unless you feel safe. America 3 years ago. So that was done. And when I kept pleading with Father in Heaven to ask him, what's next? The coast-to-coast trip, I had so many signs and feelings around it that was one of the reasons I was born into the world. For some odd, crazy, divine reason that I don't completely comprehend, it was one of my missions in life. I had that revealed to me in multiple ways, multiple times. And so when I pleaded with him to know what was next, I was instructed through the next phase of dreams, which is part of what I do. I lead people through the process of pursuing a dream. Not dreams, multiple, because that's what gets in our way, but a single-minded dream. And when I was instructed on what to do, I finally came down to 3 things. They were to transform education, to write the seminal book on dreams, and to cycle every country in the world. And when I looked at those 3, I couldn't decide which one trumped the others. And very peacefully, that whisper, louder this time, said, that's it, Layne. That's what I want you to do. Do it. Plus, we live in an incredible world, and I want to know cultures so that when I go in and tell stories, whether it's at an elementary school or junior high or adults, I can draw on real life experience and the real life culture of those countries. So good question, thank you for asking. Other questions?
So how many countries have you gone to besides the ones that you just went on for 2 months?
There were 8 there, the United Kingdom and the United States.
So you
So
haven't
that's
been
it.
to Africa and?
Nope, haven't done those yet.
Okay.
No. Every year though, for the next 27 years, the plan is to get some countries. The next summer, the plan is to go to Scandinavia. The year after, depending on how safe it is to go to the area of Egypt. And each of my children, when they turn 14, that's a threshold I've discovered. And with my girls and my oldest boy, we took them each to England for where I was a missionary years ago, and said, if you buy your plane ticket, you get to go. So last year, my son came with me and we cycled Wales, transformed him. I tell you, that's the critical age, 13 or 14. And if you can get them to do a daring, gutsy adventure, their self-confidence skyrockets. So that's the deal I have with my kids.
How long did you bike in a day? How many miles?
It started out going between 50 and 80 miles a day.
A day? Wow, that's a lot of riding.
It's a lot of miles, and then I realized through somebody I met who let me stay with him, it was too much. It was, I needed to back off, because then all you're doing is biking. You're not really knowing the culture. You're not stopping.
You're not enjoying.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not meeting people, getting to know them, tasting the food. You're just going. So I switched. Sometimes I had to take trains. Sometimes I had to take buses to catch up to where I needed to be. But in the end, it was 2,000 miles. A lot of rain. I don't know if you know, right now Italy's submerged.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so.
Venice flooded last week.
Flooding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of floods.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
but
they
St.
are.
Mark-
That is such
yeah,
a
but
beautiful
St. Mark's
country.
Square floods.
Time to baptize.
But it's like.
Okay, time to baptize. Any other
Out of
questions?
the places that you've cycled to, which one did you love the best and why?
You know, that's a great question. And it's one that I can't answer, because every time I would go to a state or a country, I would think this is the best, until I got to the next one. But I can tell you, people were kindest, other than the US, kindest and most interested in Italy.
Oh, yeah.
They were amazing. I had people stopping me all the time asking, whereas Portugal, very reserved. Hardly anybody would open up to ask. There were great kindnesses in Portugal, but just not as open. The one site, human-made site, that blew all the others away was the Plaza de España in Seville.
Where?
Seville,
Seville.
in Spain.
Because?
Not only is it incredible architecture, there's this semicircle that is ginormous, and all along down at the base there are these segments that tell the story of Spain. They'll have in ceramic tile, everything's ceramic tile in Spain. They have a picture of some event that happened in a region, and then down at the bottom in a big map about this big, it shows the region along with the neighboring regions. So you know what story happened, where it happened, and how it was connected with the regions around it. Fascinating. It was hot, like Arizona type hot. Hardly anybody out there. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. And I spent half the afternoon just going from tile to tile. Fabulous. Natural wonder was in France. They have what's called the Grand Canyon of France.
Really?
It was again a brutal day. Headwind, steep climb, and when I finally reached level ground and could see the gorge, I literally raised my voice to the heavens, thanking God for the privilege of beholding such stunning, exquisite beauty.
Did it look like the Grand Canyon that we have?
I've been to the Grand Canyon. I like it better. I like that better than the Grand Canyon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Grand Canyon doesn't have all the color. It does have a lot
I think
of
it
color.
does.
This didn't have a lot of color. It had ridges, and then down at the bottom, the water was so sky blue. It looked like somebody had poured in dye. But the ridges and the line of road that made its way around, and you could see the RVs like little tiny dots against these magnificent mountains that rose up into the sky like something you'd see in Norway. It was absolutely stunning.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
We've got 2 minutes.
Okay, you took one of your children with you on just one area? Or several?
No, none of them came with me this trip.
But you took a couple of your children with you on the trips. I know it would be more of a bonding experience, but from your child's point of view, what was their favorite place and why?
That's a good question. My son's was the castles. We
Okay.
went,
Oh,
we
yeah.
decided to see 6 different castles. He loved all of them.
In England?
In Wales.
Wales.
Yeah.
My daughters, their favorite, my daughter was seeing, the oldest one was seeing Wicked in London. And the other one was seeing castles
And why?
because they earned it.
That's good.
Yep, it taught them valuable lessons. Okay, I'm stretching my time. Let me just tell you 10 tips of story very quickly. First one, there has to be a portal of entry. Take your listener into a new world. Second, risk the journey. Every great tale involves a journey and risk, so risk the journey. 3, every good story has a crisis. If it doesn't have a crisis, you don't have a story. All you have is a narrative. 4th, has to have imagery, taste, smells, sounds.
What
5th,
was the word you used for that?
imagery. Imagery. Yeah, images.
Pictures.
5, lively characters. Interesting people. They could be doofuses or bold and daring or, you know, the Homeland Security pat down. 6, there has to be a guide. Something or someone that whispers a direction and you take it. Or not, but you learn. 7, suspense, where you reveal and conceal. 8, there has to be a portal of exit, where you take in your reader or your listener into this new world and bring them back out with a lesson. 9, there has to be transformation. If there's no change in the main character, then the story hasn't done its job. And last of all, leave a pearl in their lap. There has to be a nugget of wisdom. Mine is this, and I'll leave you just with this. I was in Florence, and the daughter of a friend of mine took me out to eat, and she and her kids treated me to Italy. And she asked a similar question, why are you doing this? And I said, you know, it's a dream and it's a risk. She said, but isn't that what a dream is? At the end of the day, if you haven't risked the dream, you don't have a story. And if you don't have a story, You can have fast cars, plush couches, money in the bank, but if you don't have a story, you don't have much that will outlive you. So I pray that each one of us will go out, find our stories, and if we don't have them, create them. Take the risk. And with that, thank you.